I find that my parcels are always stolen, so I bought a box of live cockroaches online. Not long after, I heard earth-shattering screams coming from next door. My new home was being renovated, and I was worried about the neighbors being troubled, so I bought 2 sets of earplugs and some handmade desserts, which I packaged and gave to my neighbors upstairs and downstairs. The new home is a 2-unit apartment on 1 floor, facing the neighbor. I think it's a relationship where you don't look up and don't look down, and you need to manage neighborly relations well. So I put some fruits into the gift box. I took the gift and knocked on the door, but no one opened the door for a long time. Maybe the owner has gone out. When I turned to leave, the door opened. A woman with messy hair and stained home clothes stood in the door. Hello, I am a newly moved neighbor. It happens to be renovated and it may be a little noisy. I hope you can bear with me. I picked up the gift and handed it to her. There were earplugs, fruit, and a dessert cake made by myself. I hope you like it. She looked me up and down and clicked her tongue. It's your house decoration, right? It's making me very noisy and making people uncomfortable all day long. I've complained to the property management several times. Can you finish it as soon as possible? I was stunned for a moment. I didn't expect her to be so direct. The neighbors upstairs and downstairs all smiled and expressed their understanding, but I'm really sorry. The decoration time has been compressed as much as possible. We also want to finish the decoration as soon as possible and move in as soon as possible. It may still take some time. Sorry to trouble you. Before I finished speaking, the door slammed shut. The sound made my ears dizzy. This neighbor doesn't seem to be easy to get along with. Less than half a year later, my husband Tang Mo and I moved into a new home. On the day of the move, we were busy running up and down the hallways. I was packing some housewarming gifts for my friends, while Tang Mo went downstairs to lead the way to relatives and friends who came to congratulate me. My best friend Xiaoqin came with a gift. Seeing that there was no one around me, she came over and said, "Is the person who has been standing with your husband today your eldest aunt?" I shook my head. My eldest aunt went out of town and didn't come at all today. Who is that woman? What woman? I was confused. I was so busy today that I didn't even have time to look at who Tang Mo was with. Oh, you are so confused. Xiaoqin hit me hard and said, "Isn't there any point about what my husband looks like? Your husband has a good temper. How can you follow him? Stand up for me." She took the work away from me and ordered me to go downstairs and take a look. I had no choice but to go downstairs out of curiosity. In the community, I saw my husband's back from a distance. There was indeed a woman standing next to him, and from the back she didn't look like someone I knew. Tang Mo. As Tang Mo turned to look at me, the woman beside him also turned. I frowned when I saw her face. Isn't this our next door neighbor? What is she doing here? Wife, are you busy? Tang Mo took my hand and squeezed my shoulder. I had a hard day today. It's a bit tiring indeed. I didn't hide it, showed my fatigue, and snuggled into his arms. Are you a couple? Someone suddenly spoke. Yes, I deliberately pretended to recognize her. Hey, aren't you our next door neighbor? What a coincidence. Why are you here? I also live in this community. Is it weird to appear here? When she opened her mouth, she was very aggressive towards me. Oh, she said she was the manager of the community, and she wanted to check the people coming and going here. Tang Mo looked at me and said, and then looked at her. It turns out she lives next door to our house. The management staff of the community? Isn't that property? She ignored me, walked to Tang Mo and patted his arm. Next. Chat. After saying that, he turned around and left. Next chat. What did you talk about? I put my finger on my waist and asked Tang Mo to recruit him for real. What an injustice, grown-ups. Tang Mo looked aggrieved. She kept asking me for personal information. I saw that she didn't show her ID or anything. It looked unreliable, so I didn't tell her. I was really tight-lipped and didn't say anything. I don't know why. Framing good people. Tang Mo's angry and aggrieved look amused me. This is the end of the matter. When I was alone at home, there was a knock on the door. I opened the door. It's the neighbor directly across the door. Do you have any food at home? Lend me some vegetable? I was stunned for a moment, but before I could answer, she opened the door and walked in. He went straight to the kitchen, opened the refrigerator and rummaged around. I have a gentle personality, and I have never seen such a person before, so I didn't know how to react. I just think she's weird. Lend me these pork ribs and pork belly. I'll buy the vegetables and return them to you later. She was carrying 2 bags of meat in her hands. Distant relatives are not as good as close neighbors. Don't you disagree with our relationship? Now that the words have come to this point, I can only curl my lips. After closing the refrigerator door, she looked left and right towards the refrigerator, opened the door and carefully observed the internal functions of the refrigerator. I stepped forward and closed the refrigerator door. It was an old refrigerator and there was nothing to look at. We originally wanted to buy a new one, but we couldn't find a suitable one, so we simply used it for now. No, I think it's pretty good. She praised the refrigerator profusely. Let's do this. If you buy a new one, give me the old one. Our homes are close by and it's easy to move. Let your husband help. I carried it in to save me having to find someone to move it. I am speechless. Hey, your home is quite nicely decorated, Ted. After leaving the kitchen, she raised her head and looked left and right, as if she had entered some tourist attraction. Oh, the sofa is very comfortable. She jumped on the sofa and sat down hard. I can't stand it, so I put it politely, don't use so much force, a good sofa spring can't withstand your tossing like this. She glanced at me. What you said is strange, the sofa is just for sitting on. As he said that, he continued to play hard twice. I was already vaguely unhappy. It was too late to take care of my newly bought furniture. I reminded her and continued to mess with it. It was really difficult to communicate with her. I looked up at the clock on the wall. Oops, it's already this time. I'm going out, I said while looking at her. Do you have anything else to do? If not, I'll pack it up and go out. The meaning of seeing off guests is written on his face. She heard it, stood up reluctantly, and touched all the furnishings on the way from the living room to the door. It took a while to get out the door. Seeing that she finally left, I stepped forward and closed the door. Wife, our next door neighbor just came over and said that you promised to give her the refrigerator last time and she came to take a look. What? I received a call from Tang Mo when I was at work, and I felt bad after hearing it. When did I promise to give her the refrigerator? Last time Tang Mo came home late, so I didn't tell him about it. I didn't expect that he himself would fall into the trap. I thought the delivery person was coming, so I opened the door and she got in. She went to the kitchen with these, opened and closed the refrigerator, and said this to me. You wouldn't really carry our refrigerator to her house, would you? Of course not. Tang Mo interrupted me. Your husband is not of us. How can he help count the money after being sold? You are awesome. Fortunately, he has a brain. But Tang Mo stopped talking. But what? An ominous premonition came over me. Later she sat on the sofa and kept talking to me. Tang Mo told me intermittently. She said her name was Lu Su, and her husband was away from home all the time, and she only saw her 3 to 5 times a year. The child was sent to her grandparents' house, and she was often alone at home. She said she was bored and lonely. I looked at her. He is a bit talkative and tries not to talk to me. What? Don't you understand what she means? I teased. What do I know? You don't even know how scared I was at the time. What are you, a grown man, afraid of? Afraid that she would eat me? Poof. I laughed out loud. Okay, grown man, wait at home for your sister to come back to protect you. Come on. Ever since we, as husband and wife, have seen our neighbor Lusu's arrogance, we have carefully observed her every time we go in and out, for fear of bumping into her and making her say something crazy. After dinner, Tang Mo and I went downstairs for a walk to eat as usual. When I walked to the small playground in the community, my childlike innocence was revealed, so I sat on the swing and let him push me. After playing for a while, I became thirsty and he ran to buy water for me to drink. When I came back, There was a child behind me. Why did you buy a child back? Tang Mo turned around and took a look. Don't talk nonsense. I met this child at the door of the small store. He kept crying at the door of the store. He was lying on the ground crying and asking the shop owner to give him sausages and chocolates. I thought he was old. He was so young, and he seemed to be really hungry, so I paid for him to buy sausages and chocolates for him to eat. When I was paying, the shop owner also told me that this child lived in our community and I had not seen him much before. He had only been coming to his shop frequently recently. The shop owner was very worried and seemed very upset. Tang Mo also imitated the shop owner's expression for me to see. So he followed you? I pointed at the child behind him. His skin was dark, and his clothes were dirty. He could barely see clearly in the darkness. He lives in the same community as us, so I thought our paths home might overlap maybe. I nodded. After playing for a while, we stood up and planned to go home. As soon as we stood up, the child who was amusing himself on the swing suddenly jumped down and followed us. Tang Mo and I looked at each other eyes, feeling strange. We walked into the elevator of the community and he followed us. I couldn't help it, put my hand on his shoulder, lowered my head and asked him, "Children, where do you live? It's getting late. You have to go home early, otherwise your parents will be worried." The child shook off my hand and walked straight in. He didn't treat me well, but he was very well behaved towards Tang Mo. Tang Mo asked the same thing. He reached out and pressed the elevator button. "I live here." We looked at each other and looked at each other again. He actually lives on the same floor as us. If there are two households on one floor, then he is Lusu's child. The elevator door opened and we walked to the left. The child glanced at us and walked to the right. We opened the door and entered the house. The door was not closed tightly. We listened to what was going on next door with our ears open in a tacit understanding. Bang, bang, bang. The child banged the door hard twice. There was no movement inside. "Mum, Mother," the child yelled at the top of his lungs. Still no movement. I took out the fruits from the refrigerator, washed them, and came out of the kitchen. The door next door was still not open. I listened to the children yelling until my voice became hoarse. "Is his mother not at home?" Tang Mo was more concerned about what was going on next door than I was, and had been standing at the entrance for dozens of minutes. "I guess so, otherwise his son would have woken up even if he was sleeping if he made such a big noise. The child is so pitiful," Tang Mo said. "Who says it isn't? About age." Half an hour later, the child was tired and sat slumped at the door of his house. Tang Mo couldn't bear it and looked at me. In that look, the meaning was ready to come out. To be honest, I feel pitiful too. After getting my approval, Tang Mo opened the door and waved to the child. When he brought his child into the house, he left the door open so that he could see what was going on next door. "See when his mother comes home. Sit down," I greeted him, pushing the freshly washed fruit in front of him, "and have some fruit." The child didn't look at me, stretched out his black hand, picked up the grapes and took a bite. "None of them are borrowed without ventilation. Eat slowly." He turned a deaf ear and continued to take one mouthful after another until his mouth could no longer be filled and was almost full. "No one will compete with you, so eat slowly." I have never seen a child eat like this, as if a hamster is hoarding food. It feels like he is not eating, but just trying to stuff it into his mouth. Ugh, wow. He leaned back and spit out all the grapes in his mouth. Grape seeds, grape juice, and grape skins were mixed with other vomit, and vomited all over the floor. The air was filled with a lingering sour smell. I couldn't help but feel stomach acid rising when I smelled it. Tang Mo came out of the toilet when he heard the noise and froze in shock for a few seconds. "What are you?" Halfway through his words, he turned and walked to the toilet to get a broom and mop to clean the dirt on the floor. The child seemed to realize his mistake and stood there at a loss. His clothes were also stained with some vomit, making them look even dirtier. "No, it's okay, it's okay." Tang Mo caught a glimpse of his appearance from the corner of his eye while he was cleaning, and patted his shoulder to comfort him. "You go and sit there while Uncle cleans here." The child walked to the corner obediently. "Looks pitiful." The words of blame stuck in my throat and I couldn't say them anymore. After Tang Mo finished sweeping, mopping, and using an air purifier to remove odors, it was almost 11 p.m. His cell phone on the table rang. I was at the table and checked it for him. It's a series of unfamiliar numbers. I pressed the green connect button. Hello, who is this? Why you? A woman's voice. I frowned, narrowed my eyes, and cast my sharp gaze on Tang Mo, who was still working. At this point, why would any woman call him? Who are you? I'm not welcome. Forget it, the woman on the other end of the phone said lightly. Help me call Xiaoping home. Xiaoping? Who is Xiaoping? Oops, she is impatient now. Isn't Xiaoping at your house? Tell him to come back and sleep. The door is opened. At this point, I recognized the owner of this voice from the tone of his voice, Liu Su. After returning from a walk, the door of our house was not closed. If Liu Su came back from outside, we would definitely be able to see him. So there is only one conclusion. She's always at home. She had been at home and allowed her son to scream and bang on the door for nearly 40 minutes. This is actually something a mother can do. Why didn't you open the door for your son at home? Do you know how long he shouted at the door? How could I hear it when I was sleeping? She said it confidently and matter-of-factly. Then how do you know he is in our house? Then I will always wake up when I go to sleep. When I wake up, I hear him playing at your house. Since he likes it, let him play more. Your house is so close, so I feel relieved. I'm speechless and choked. What is this word? I picked up the phone and spoke in a bad tone. Xiaoping, your mother is calling you to go home. His mother? Tang Mo paused. Liu Su is back. Why did I not see it? Did you see that? I said angrily that she never went out from the beginning to the end and was always at home. Tang Mo wrinkled his face, as if he was listening to a magical story. Xiaoping sat blankly in the corner playing puzzles, as if he didn't hear me. Full stop. I yelled a few more words, but he remained still and continued to play with the puzzle. Tang Mo received my emotions, walked over, and coaxed me gently. Hey, Xiaoping, it's already very late and you have to go back to bed. Can you come and play again tomorrow? Xiaoping didn't listen to him this time. He twitched his arms and stayed away. Tang Mo was stunned and shrugged at me. I took out candies and biscuits and put them in front of Xiaoping to coax him back. He glanced twice, felt a little moved, grabbed the snacks and held them in his arms. But the person still sat still. It is rare to see such a stubborn child. In the end, Tang Mo and I stuffed a snack on the left, coaxed a piece of fruit on the right, and gave him a box of puzzles. Then he reluctantly walked out of my house with a pout on his face. After sending him away, Tang Mo and I breathed a sigh of relief. I looked at the time on the wall and it was already close to 12 o'clock. After all this tossing, we were both exhausted and fell asleep from exhaustion. The doorbell rang early in the morning and kept ringing for about 10 minutes. I struggled to open my eyes and glanced at the alarm clock on the bedside table. It's only 6:30. Who is it? So early in the morning, very noisy. Tang Mo muttered, turned over, and continued to sleep. The doorbell continued to ring, disturbingly noisy. I climbed out of bed with difficulty and dragged myself to open the door. The door opened. A child stood. It's Xiaoping. He held a stick in his hand and looked at me expressionlessly. Taking advantage of my dazzling moment, he ducked through the crack of the open door and ran in, grazing my legs. He ran straight to the corner where he played yesterday and opened a brand new box of puzzles to play with. The anger of waking up and the irritability of someone taking something without permission made me emotional. But my reason tells me not to get angry at children. I suppressed the anger in my heart and said angrily, Xiaoping, it's not appropriate to come here to play now. You go back to your mother first, otherwise she will be worried. Xiaoping was minding his own business with the puzzle without raising his eyebrows. It seems that he will not take the initiative to go back. I walked to the next door and knocked on the door, wanting to talk to Liu Su about Xiaoping's problem. But after knocking for a long time, no one came to open the door. I knew she was inside and deliberately didn't open the door. I didn't want to waste any more time, so I went back and closed the door, leaving Xiaopeng alone to play in the living room. I walked to the bedroom, closed the door, and threw myself on the bed to catch up on my sleep. I slept for less than an hour, and in my daze, I felt someone shaking me. Wife, stop sleeping, wake up. Did you cook something in the kitchen and forget to turn it off? The strong smell of burning went straight to the tip of the pen. I was stunned for a while and shook my head blankly. I do not remember. Tang Mo jumped out of bed instantly and ran straight to the kitchen. The sound of jingling bells coming from the kitchen made my heart beat fast. I couldn't really be cooking something and forget to turn it off, could I? As soon as I thought of this, my dizzy head suddenly became clear. Feeling anxious, I opened the bedroom door and walked out. The living room was filled with the smell of burnt odor mixed with oily smoke. It was so strong that it choked your throat after just one whiff. I waved my hand and walked to the kitchen holding my nose. I don't know what Tang Mo did, but the kitchen was already in a mess when he entered. The lid of the pot fell to the ground, and there was a mixture of black and yellow liquid flowing on the stove. It was unclear what it was. The pot was so burnt that it was impossible to tell what was in it. In the kitchen, there is another petite figure. Xiaopeng? What is he doing in the kitchen? Tang Mo turned around and saw me, sighed helplessly, and pointed at Xiaopeng with his eyes. What is he doing in the kitchen? No need to ask. Tang Mo wiped the dirty water on the stove with a rag and played house in the kitchen. Is this all caused by Xiaopeng? I was surprised. How could this child be so rude? I originally thought that this child was just introverted and didn't like to talk to others. He should be well behaved at heart. He was so bold as to start a fire in the kitchen. Xiaopeng, what did you do in the kitchen? I squatted down and looked at Xiaopeng seriously. Not surprisingly, he ignored me and just lowered his head, as if he knew he was wrong, but stubbornly refused to speak. I am patient. Didn't your mother tell you that the kitchen is very dangerous? Children are not allowed to play in the kitchen. Did you know that? Xiaopeng remained motionless, which made my blood boil. Fortunately, I still maintained some sense and stepped forward to take over the work from Tang Mo's hands. I nuzzled at him and handed this mess to him. He looked at me and then at Xiaopeng. Hey, I thought I heard someone calling you. Tang Mo probed his head, pretending to be serious, and picked up Xiaopeng while talking. Hey, it's true. Your mother called you to go back. Let's go home first. Don't let your mother worry. He walked out of the kitchen with Xiaopeng in his arms, and when he heard the noise, he probably opened the door and walked out. I breathed a sigh of relief. If Tang Mo wasn't here, I really didn't know what to do with this child. He couldn't be beaten again and again, and he couldn't be scolded again and again. He was as stubborn as a cow, not to mention expecting his unreliable mother to take him away. This kid is the scariest kid I've ever seen, none of them. A few days later, we were going to have a get-together with friends. When we walked downstairs of the community, I saw Xiaopeng swinging by himself in the children's area from a distance. I feel a headache when I see this child now, so I quietly sign. Allied to Tang Mo. He understood and nodded. As I walked to the intersection, I heard someone shouting from behind. Xiao Tang. Xiao Meng. We both turned around and saw that it was the resident living above our house. We met each other before when we were handing out housewarming gifts, and then we met several times upstairs and downstairs, and after a few exchanges of greetings, we became familiar with each other. Sister Lan, what a coincidence. I saw a few green vegetable leaves coming out of the plastic bag she was carrying. Are you coming back from shopping? Yes. Isn't it just that I need to cook when I get back from work? Sister Lan smiled and looked at me, then at Tang Mo, and quietly approached me and joked, you two are young. It seems you go out to eat often. I think cooking by yourself is very mysterious. I was stunned and smiled politely. I could smell the burnt smell coming from your place last time from upstairs. Sister Lan is a kind person. From now on, if you have any questions about cooking, you can come to me and ask me. I am as young as you in the kitchen. Thank you, Sister Lan. A few words from an approachable neighbor can warm the heart. But last time, I was hesitant. Last time it was because of that child I winked. Sister Lan paused and followed my line of sight. She glanced at me and said in surprise, "Could it be the child of the woman next door to you?" I nodded and was about to tell Sister Lan the whole story. She suddenly pulled Tang Mo and me aside, looked around to make sure no outsiders were passing by, and then spoke seriously. "Neither this child nor her mother are easygoing people. Everyone here knows about them. You are new here and you may not know." Tang Mo and I looked at each other, filled with doubts, and suddenly felt something was not good. "Sister Lan, what's going on?" Sister Lan held my hand and looked around with her eyes. "I am willing to be such a talkative person because you two are young, kind and easy to get along with. You must not say it everywhere, otherwise it will spread to my family." In his ears, he wanted to blame me for having a long tongue again. "It was about a year ago," Sister Lan recalled. "At that time, it must have been the previous household living in your place. I remember that they seemed to be two newly married couples. I think they were slightly older than you two. The two of them had just gotten married and were at the stage where they wanted to have children, so they thought they were very cute when they saw other people's children. At that time, the child was a little smaller than now, and he looked quite cute, so the young couple also liked him very much. They often gave him snacks and let him come to their house to play. The child's mother lives alone all year round, and of course she is happy to have someone help take care of the child, so she lets the child often go to the couple's home. Things were normal at first, but one day Sister Lan's voice suddenly became softer, and I couldn't help but hold my breath. The child was playing at the young couple's house. I don't know what happened. The child ran to the kitchen and climbed on the stool to play on the stove. As a result, he fell off the stove and the pot fell on him. He cried so hard, the whole building heard the call. At first, we thought it was a family beating their children and they all came to try to persuade them. But we didn't expect that such a thing happened. The young couple also blamed themselves very much when they found out. When they saw that the child had fallen badly, they immediately notified the child's mother and sent them to the hospital as soon as possible. Fortunately, it was a minor injury and the wound was not big. The child came back after staying in the hospital for a few days. The young couple was so frightened that they took turns guarding the child day and night. Sometimes when I saw them coming back in the morning, I felt distressed and looked haggard and lost a lot of weight. On the other hand, the child's mother acted like a perfectly fine person, not showing any signs of worry. I thought the matter would just go away, but I didn't expect that later I heard the mother of the child asking the couple to compensate, claiming that they had injured the child and affected the child's growth. On the one hand, the young couple probably had never met such an unreasonable woman. On the other hand, they felt that their child was hurt because they did not treat her well, and they felt bad about it, so they were sincere and compensated the mother of the child a lot of money. My heart twitched when I heard this. Why does this thing sound so familiar? If that day's eye-opening also, I dare not think about it any further. But children always go to places they like. After the child was discharged from the hospital, he also ran to the couple's home as usual. Sister Lan clicked her tongue. The couple had been bitten by snakes. How could they be so careless? So I tried my best to stop dealing with the family next door. You see, that child is also stubborn. He often follows the delivery person. As soon as the door opens, he trots fast and rushes towards the young couple's home like an arrow, which scares the young couple to death. I pursed my lips. Why don't I have a good chat with the child's mother? As soon as I asked this question, I regretted it. His mother is Lusu. Communication is useless. If the mother of the child was a reasonable person, how could she have the nerve to demand compensation from the young couple? Sister Lan sighed. In fact, at that time, I often saw the young couple playing with the child in the park downstairs, enjoying themselves, just like a family of three. If that incident hadn't happened, the young couple would probably still be living here now. She glanced meaningfully in Xiaopeng's direction, and you wouldn't have moved in. Well, people are really hard to get along with sometimes. Sister Lan told the whole story and reminded her specially. So we who have lived here for a long time always take a detour when we see that child, for fear of being scammed. You also remember not to get too close to that family. It's not that I said anything bad about her, I'm just giving you a heads up. I patted her hand and said, don't worry, Sister Lan. We've heard about this and forget it. We won't spread it everywhere. Thank you for telling us. After saying goodbye to Sister Lan, Tang Mo and I were silent for a long time. They looked at each other and already knew what they wanted to say. The building structure of the house we live in is one staircase and 2 rooms. There are 2 houses on the left and right coming out of the elevator. There is also an outer corridor at the door of the room. It was originally piled with some materials and other debris left over from our renovation. After listening to Sister Lan's advice, Tang Mo planned to add another door to the corridor to create a more private space like his neighbors upstairs and downstairs. So these days, the doorway has returned to its messy state before the renovation. It happens to be the time when I move into a new home and add new items little by little. Every time I see some cute little objects or practical little things on the internet, I really want to have a set in my own home. Unknowingly, I placed an order for a batch of express delivery late at night when I was at my lowest sanity. The door is being repaired and the courier boy cannot deliver it, so he can only place it near the elevator entrance. Large and small boxes were stacked as high as one person. I bring 2 or 3 of them in every day, and I feel very fulfilled as I watch my new home go from being empty to now being filled with things in the direction I want. What are you doing at your house? Didn't it just get renovated? Lu Su came to the door with his hands behind his back like a prosecutor and asked questions. Well, renovation rework. I squatted the door and didn't look at her. I was unpacking the express delivery in my hand and said a perfunctory response. Wow, hubby, look at this one I bought, isn't it cute? The one I was unpacking happened to be a set of Disney princess-shaped cups that I had been thinking about for a long time. I took out a cup and held it in front of Tang Mo, who was doing the decoration himself, and showed it to him. From now on, when we drink water from this water cup, we will feel like we are a princess and prince in the castle. Tang Mo glanced at me speechlessly, forced to rejoice with me. It's quite cute. How much does it cost? Lu Su suddenly said something. I put away my smile and said lightly, a few $100. I can't remember clearly. It's so expensive. Have you been fooled? Isn't it just a cup for drinking water? I think it's worse than the ceramic mug I bought for $2. As she babbled, she wanted to reach out and take the cup and look at it. I waved my hand, took the cup, put it back into the box, and carried the box into the house. Lu Su asked for trouble, turned around and walked to Tang Mo to say something. Tang Mo was discussing with his master and had no time to talk to her. When I came out again, I saw her going back angrily. After 2 days of unpacking the express, I found that the items I was counting my fingers on to calculate the arrival time had not yet arrived. It's impossible, I believe it clearly the message says it has been signed for. I contacted the courier and he told me clearly that the courier was already at my door. I tried my best to dismantle all the express packages without finding anything, but found a more serious problem. The quantity of express delivery does not match the quantity of my purchase. I was so surprised by this discovery that I put down everything I was doing to check the express delivery and purchase information. Finally it was confirmed that there were really 7-8 couriers missing. There is no reason. The courier has always piled the parcels at the door of the house, and there has never been a case of missing the parcel. Tang Mo went home and I told him about it. He seemed to be remembering something and touched his chin. A few days ago, I saw a mountain of express delivery at the door, but the next day I found that the mountain of express delivery was much shorter. I also wanted to say that you are so diligent in unpacking express delivery, and you can handle so much in one night. So, I can't believe it, someone really stole my express delivery? The community is a mid to high-end community. It stands to reason that the people living here would not take such risks for a small profit. But it is indeed incredible that the express delivery disappeared out of thin air. I posted a message in the community owner group. The content was that a few express delivery items were missing recently. I hope that friends who picked up the wrong ones or saw them can communicate with me privately. As soon as the news came out, other owners said they had not seen it. This approach will no longer work. I decided to look for it offline again. The first household we want to ask is the one closest to us, Liu Sujia. I knocked on the door, and this time the door opened after a while. Hello, I would like to ask. There seems to be a few fewer express delivery items left at my door recently. Have you seen it, or have you picked it up by mistake? Lu Su glanced at me up and down with an unkind look on his face. What do you mean? You came to me if you lost the express. Could it be that I got it as soon as she came up? She put her hat on and opened fire on me. No, I didn't mean that. Maybe I didn't express it clearly and you misunderstood. I hurriedly explained. I just wanted to ask if you could provide me with some clues. No, she crossed her arms over her chest. You always buy expensive and impractical things. It's useless for me to take your express delivery. Is there anything else? If nothing happens, I will close the door. Lu Su looked at me impatiently. I was stunned for a moment and shook my head blankly. The door slammed shut in front of my eyes. When I got home, I told Tang Mo my doubts. Tell me, why did she say that the things I bought were expensive and impractical? Where did she come to this conclusion? Maybe she saw it when you opened the package last time. The one last time was a water cup, so why isn't it practical? I don't agree with this statement. The Disney princess water cups are really cool. Tang Mo. He stopped what he was doing and looked up at me seriously. I don't know why, but my intuition tells me that the express delivery matter has something to do with Lu Su. I took a sip of water and couldn't explain why I felt like this. Forget it, it's just a few couriers. He advised me that there is no need to make trouble with the neighbors over these couriers. We are neighbors. We can't see each other when we look up. It's so uncomfortable to live as enemies. He advocates peace. We don't deal with her. It's better to be transparent than to have a fight every time she comes in and out. But I'm not willing to do it. Why do I have to swallow my anger and not pursue the matter when the things I bought with my own money are missing on my own property? I decided to have a good talk with Lu Su again. On a weekend afternoon, I knocked on Lu Su's door again. The door opened, and it wasn't Lu Su. It's Xiaoping. Although he didn't like me, he opened the door a crack and let me in. Xiaoping, is your mother at home? Auntie wants to find your mother. He didn't say anything and ran to the living room to play by himself. Lu Su, are you there? I called her name as I walked into her house. No one responded to me. Lu Su seemed to be not at home. I sat on the sofa and planned to wait for her. Out of boredom, I looked around the living room and took stock. Suddenly, I caught a glimpse of a small ornament, which looked very similar to the one I bought but didn't receive. The same girl with pearl earrings holds a small tray in her hand. I was confused, so I took out my phone and clicked on the detailed interface in the purchase link to compare. It's exactly the same. This further deepened my speculation. Why are you at my house? Lu Su's sharp voice suddenly sounded in my ears, making me shiver. I wanted to talk to you. Xiaopeng opened the door. I came in and found that you were not at home, so there's nothing to talk about. Get out of my house right away. Lu Su couldn't help but step forward to pull me, and he became very excited, etc. I was pushed by her at the door. She wanted to close the door, but I quickly put my foot on the crack of the door to stop her from closing the door. I want to ask you one last time, did you really not see my express delivery? She frowned impatiently and said, no, I don't have it. I don't even bother to take your crappy courier. What's wrong? Tang Mo was alarmed by the noise we made and trotted up behind me. Xiao Tang, please take care of your wife and don't let her bite people everywhere. Seeing Tang Mo coming, Lu Su calmed down a little and was no longer so excited. He lowered his hand to close the door, opened the door a crack, and complained about me to him. Sorry. Tang Mo apologized and pulled me over again. Didn't I tell you that if you lose it by express delivery, just lose it? It doesn't matter. I'll buy it again for you, a more expensive and better one. But, those of me it's okay, don't hurt the harmony of the neighbors for a little express delivery, we will just buy it again. After hearing what he said, I had no reason to continue to refute. Let Tang Mo take me back. On a quiet night, Tang Mo and I were ready to rest. Suddenly, an earth-shattering scream was heard. The sound was harsh and high, resounding through the corridor. Tang Mo and I both got up and walked out. Tang Mo glanced at the cat's eyes and told me not to go out. He went out to see the situation himself. I sat on the sofa anxiously waiting for him. He came back after a while, but his expression was not very good. He covered his chest with one hand and ran to the bathroom before he could reply. Don't forget to close the door tightly when you leave. What's wrong? I walked to the bathroom door with a distressed look on my face. Tang Mo retched a few times, but nothing came out. He turned around and took a towel to wipe his mouth. You don't know how scary that scene is. You'll get trypophobia just by looking at it. What? That's it. He pointed in the direction of the next door. I heard a scream that sounded like it was coming from Lusu's house. I walked over and saw that she just opened the door and people rushed out like crazy. I thought something was wrong, so I looked around. That rascal. Okay, come on, don't tell me about crosstalk here. Tang Mo continued, I don't know what she did. The floor at home was densely covered with black things. When I took a closer look, it turned out to be cockroaches. Live cockroaches. They are as big as a baby's fist, each one has wings, and many of them can fly. As he spoke, it seemed that the scene appeared in his mind again, and he turned around and ran to the bathroom to retching. I handed him a bottle of water. The door to our house should be closed, so we don't let those things jump in. They reproduce quickly. Don't worry, I've sprayed insecticide all around the door and released cockroach predators, I said calmly. How are you? Tang Mo glanced at me doubtfully and said in disbelief, isn't this, could it? What's wrong with you? I patted his shoulder and said, be confident, it's all about me. Tang Mo suddenly opened his eyes wide. Are you serious? Did you make the Lusu family look like that? I pulled him to the couch to calm him down a bit. To be precise, she brought it upon herself. Didn't she always deny the express delivery thing? My intuition told me that this matter was related to her. I didn't swallow this breath, so I bought another batch of express delivery online, but this time I didn't buy household items, but live cockroaches? Tang Mo raised his eyebrows. I glanced at him, lowered my eyes, and nodded. I thought that if this matter really had nothing to do with her, then I would have to spend some money if I bought it wrong, but if it was really her who did it, I might as well teach her a lesson and vent her anger. You. Tang Mo looked at me helplessly. You know she is weird and you want to provoke her. You don't know how she will go crazy then. Is it true that she is different from ordinary people and we have to give in again and again? This is no reason for her to bully us at will. Early in the morning, there was a knock on our door. When I went to open the door sleepily, I glanced at the cat's eye subconsciously. Lusu stood at the door. I knew she was here to cause trouble, so I quickly called Tang Mo. We both looked at each other and took a deep breath. The door opened. Lusu was really menacing, and she kept yelling, "My house has become like this, and you have to take responsibility. I hired a master to clean the whole house, and you paid for it." This statement made me amused. I crossed my arms across my chest and looked at her at leisure. Why? Her voice increased. You don't know what you did. We don't know what we are doing. I only know that taking it without asking is a thief. Thief what? She was panicked for a moment, and then said confidently, I took it by mistake. I just wanted to open it to confirm. Who knew what you bought was wrong? 3 or 4-0. Yeah? If I can believe half of what she said, then I lose. Xiao Tang, tell me whether you should pay for this. He is really good at picking on the weak. He knew that Mr. Tang Mo was a good person, so he chose him. Sister Lu, this is wrong. Tang Mo looked honest. We did buy this express delivery, but we left it at our door and it showed up at your house. This Full stop. This is not very reasonable. I already told you that I got it wrong. Why can't you listen? Lusu got angry. Why are you young people so difficult to communicate and listen to what is being said? What's going on? I already told you that I took it by mistake. She stepped forward and pulled Tang Mo's sleeves and started to play tricks. You must pay for this. I was so scared that I didn't go home all night. It's enough to give me face by asking you to pay for the medical expenses when I'm not sick. We won't pay compensation, just call the police. Harmful, I said. She pointed at me with her index finger and said, you look like a soft and weak woman. Why are you so unreasonable? No one who has read a book knows that you have to pay for breaking things. Not only did I know this, I also knew that you could go to jail for stealing. You keep talking nonsense. If you keep talking nonsense, I will tear your mouth apart. Lusu suddenly became excited and wanted to rush in front of me, but Tang Mo dodged and blocked him. Tang Mo grabbed her hands and said, Sister Lu, calm down, making a fuss won't solve the problem. Our immediate problem couldn't be solved. I looked at my watch. The police would be here soon. If there is any matter, let the police handle it. If you call the police, call the police. I'm afraid of you. Lusu pinched his neck and shouted. The community was quiet early in the morning, but after her shouting, many people came upstairs and downstairs, including Sister Lan who lived upstairs in our house. Sister Lan glanced at Lusu, quietly pulled me aside, and asked in a low voice, what's wrong with you? Did you mess with that woman? It wasn't me who provoked her, it was her who made trouble first and stole the express delivery I bought. Although you are reasonable, you have to be careful. It will be difficult for others to deal with that woman's reckless behavior. Please be careful. I put on a smile to reassure her. The sound of the siren reaches your ears. Rom far to near, passing through the floors. Ding, a sound. The elevator door opened, and several police officers in uniforms came out. They walked through the crowd and walked right up to us. Just as I was about to speak, Lusu collapsed and fell at the feet of the policeman, crying so heartbreakingly. Ah, these two young men are bullying me, a woman who lives alone. You must make the decision for me, and you cannot let them open their mouths and accuse me unjustly. The policeman interrupted her. Okay, let's understand the situation first, and you can seek justice later. With that said, the two uncles investigated the situation with us and Lusu respectively to understand what happened. You took someone's express delivery, and there were cockroaches in the delivery. You opened it and turned your home into a cockroach den. Now you have someone come to clean it. Do you want this young couple to pay for it? Is that what you mean? The policeman uncle took the information he had sorted out in his hand and said to Lusu, I didn't steal someone's express delivery, I took it by mistake, accidentally. Lusu emphasized again and again. Got the wrong one? The police officer frowned. The express delivery was placed at his door, but not at yours. How could he get it wrong? Lusu was stunned for a moment, pointed at me and said, a few days ago, she kept saying that her express delivery was lost. I also found out that my express delivery was missing today, so I thought maybe the courier was lazy and left my express delivery at their door, so I went to look for it. I actually found my express delivery, so I took it back. I didn't expect that I picked up the wrong one. To be able to be reconciled by her like this is indeed a sign of her eloquence. The policeman's hand holding the pen paused. He wrote something on the paper, and then asked us, if this is possible, why don't you contact the courier? No need, I am categorical, she is lying. Everyone's eyes suddenly turned to me, and Lusu angrily wanted to stand up and beat me. You talking about here? You want to ruin my reputation. As she spoke, she began to drag out her voice again, deliberately making a crying sound. If I hadn't had the evidence, I would have almost thought that what this woman said was true. I clicked on my phone, clicked on a clip, turned the volume button on my phone to the maximum, and played it for everyone to see. This is a clip from the perspective of my doorstep. There was no one in the picture, but with the sound of the elevator door opening, a woman walked out of the elevator. Everyone knew this person, It was Lusu who was crying in front of him. I saw her walking out of the elevator carrying an oversized canvas bag. She looked around and didn't go toward her own home. Instead, she came to my door first. She picked through the courier pile at the door like picking goods. Finally, she chose 2 good-sized ones and stuffed them into her bag. She took another small one in her hand. There was an oversized courier in front of her, and she didn't even look at it. During the process of taking it, once the sound of the elevator sounded, she would straighten up and put on a nonchalant expression. His expression. After the noise passed, he continued picking. Very skillful. TSK. While watching the video, the police officer made a sound of exclamation from time to time, and glanced at Lusu while watching the video. Lusu looked embarrassed for a while. The video evidence is here. What else do you want to say? The police officer thrust his cell phone in front of her. I told you, this is my express delivery. What's the problem if I took it? Lusu accepted the truth and insisted that it was her courier. Okay, I stepped forward and said, you tell me in front of everyone, how many express packages did you take from our house by mistake? 1, just 1. Okay, everyone heard it. Everyone responded to me one after another. I clicked on the mobile phone case link, and I just discovered that the courier I had missed happened to be the mobile phone I had sent for repair. There was another courier. Let me take a look. Oh, it's some jewelry. I clicked on the mobile phone search software and pressed the sound search function. I asked everyone to be quiet, and immediately there was a faint sound coming from a certain direction. Everyone is looking for it. Went to the door of Lusu's house. There were several cleaning people inside, and one of them ran out with a mobile phone, looking around as if looking for someone. Finally, his eyes stopped on Lusu, and he ran over and handed her the phone. Ms. Lu, your phone is ringing. Lusu was stunned on the spot, reaching out his hand and not knowing whether he should take it or not. The policeman took it and handed it to me. Is this your mobile phone? I didn't say anything and did some operations on my mobile phone. The phone in his hand rang again. I clicked it again and the sound stopped suddenly. Everyone saw that this mobile phone was taken out from Lusu's house, and it was the best ironclad evidence that it was in full view of everyone, not me. She opened her mouth, but she didn't know what to say. Her normally sharp mouth became tame at this moment. I want to file a case. The value of my mobile phone has exceeded 2,000 yuan, which should meet the standards for filing a case. The policeman pursed his lips and nodded. He thought it was a civil dispute, but now it has turned into a criminal case. No, I really took them by accident. 2 of them. Lusu panicked and walked in front of me. Tang Mo was afraid that she would try to tear me apart again, so he stood in front of me and stopped her. I'm sorry, I picked it up by mistake. Xiao Meng, for the sake of our neighbors, please forgive me once. I promise there will be no next time. Xiao Tang, tell Xiao Meng, we are neighbors after all. Distant relatives are not as good as close neighbors. Please help me if you have something to do. Don't make it so embarrassing that you have to go to the police station, don't you think? Xiao Meng, you are kind-hearted, please let it go this time. It will be uncomfortable if Xiao Peng comes back later and can't see me. You don't want a child to bear these grievances. Lu Suxu talked a lot. Tang Mo didn't say anything, and I didn't pay attention to her. The policeman asked me quietly, do you want to have sex? I shook my head. He understood what I meant. The 2 uncles helped Lusu into the elevator, one on the left and the other on the right. Tang Mo and I followed closely behind. At the police station, Lusu saw that I was still unwilling to change my story and was determined to sue her. He simply stopped saying nice things and just cursed at me, specializing in harsh words. I plugged in the headphones and the world became clear. Anyway, I'm reasonable, let her say whatever she likes. Follow up. Lusu was released after spending a few days in the police station. It is said that a criminal record was kept. We didn't move, we still lived there. She hasn't moved, she just doesn't live there often. I heard from Sister Lan that she went to live with her husband. This matter caused quite a stir that day, and many residents directly discussed it in the owner group. They were talking about it, regardless of the fact that the person involved was in the group. No matter how thick-skinned you can't stand such criticism. She was well known in the neighborhood. Her story has become a rare after-dinner story, and I often feel scared when I dream back at midnight. If that day, I did not install the monitoring in advance, what if that day, what she took away was not those few express packages, then there is a chance that her words will stand firm and she will successfully continue to show off her power in front of us, continue to live here with peace of mind, continue to harass our lives with a clear conscience. It's scary to think about.